Good morning. My name is Ruth. This is Fae Hollow Homestead, and I've been meaning to do a food forest tour, but I got some chickens that got into it and scratched up a bunch of stuff. There was a snake, a copperhead, that my father-in-law and my husband dug around in my corn and squash bed a little bit to see if they could get it and get it out of here. Because just so you guys know, it is illegal to kill those snakes in our area. So anyway, in my book, that's really, really sad. But anyway, and I have been needing to plant my fall vegetable garden. And so what I did was, I'm letting my cat into the food forest right now. He's great at catching voles, so I'm good with him going in. So I've been really focusing on cleaning up my vegetable garden and getting the fall vegetables in. And then I had a lot of work and I had to go do a whole bunch of things. We started homeschooling this week. I mean, we've been homeschooling for years, but school started this week. And so there's always about a week of, maybe even 2, of me balancing out, figuring out what my new schedule is, trying to get everything in. So I've not been able, and also it's been torrentially downpouring all week because we've had the effects of a hurricane or a tropical storm coming through, which is not affecting as much the people down a little bit more south of us, like where my mother lives, about an hour from here, but more like the West Virginia edge there, and we're right there. So anyway, I decided, you know what? This channel is about showing you what it's like to have a food forest and a garden and a medicinal herb garden, to do a homestead, all these things. And I would not be portraying all of that properly if I only showed you my gardens after I spent a bunch of time and effort making them showcase worthy, you know? So if you want to have a food forest, which I could not recommend more highly, I'm going to show you what it would be like if you weren't able to get into the food forest. For me, it's been like a month and a half, okay? I think it feels like that. It might be more like 3 weeks. It really, like, time not spent in my food forest is time wasted, I feel like. Anyway, but so I'm going to do the very uncomfortable thing of showing you my food forest on neglect. And tomorrow I'm going to be spending the entire day in here just fixing it back, putting it back in order, because, you know, the chickens did create a lot of havoc. The rain that we've had has really started up like a ton of weeds, where I had just gotten rid of a whole bunch. And so, I mean, it just looks kind of awful. This is the worst it will ever look. And I'm inviting you to come see. So please don't judge me. Anyway, welcome to my food forest. This food forest is a 3-year-old food forest. It's nearing the end of its 3rd summer. Some of the trees that I've planted in here, I planted this year. It is all based on permaculture principles. Almost everything in here is going to be perennials and food bearing. And if it's not, it's going to be either soil building, or it's going to be pollinator friendly, okay, so to bring in those pollinators. And since it's not completely mature yet, it's going to take a few more years for everything to become mature in here. I still have blueberry bushes that are only like a foot high, and they're going to end up being, you know, like 3 feet wide eventually. As things mature and grow out, there will be less and less room for annuals in here. So right now I have space for annuals, so I am putting annuals in here just because I have the space. So there's squash, there's tomatoes, there's basil, there's, you know, corn. Anyway, so that's the stage of where I am with the food forest. I'm in zone 6B, and this is the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia. And here's my door. And as you walk in under this beautiful kiwi trellis. Now, where I live, it has to be hardy kiwi, which is kind of like a grape-sized kiwi. It's not fuzzy, so you can just eat it straight, although I know people that just eat it straight anyway, even if it's fuzzy, but I don't like that. So I have some liatris growing here, some lilies growing here, because this is the front door area, and I want it to look really beautiful. So I've got some more liatris right here. There's a Gerber daisy that my mother-in-law gave me, but you can see my my winter savory right here is getting overgrown and kind of covering that. I need to come in, I need to trim that back to where all that new growth is in the middle. You can see there's still bumblebees enjoying the flowers though. The chickens got into here really good. The rain, we haven't mowed in a long time. It's been one of the driest summers ever. So I've got, ooh, guys, I was at Goodwill the other day and I found a manual push mower. Like not the kind that you crank and it makes the big noise, you put the gasoline or you even charge a battery for. This is just the original lawnmower where it's just blades that spin as you push it. It's got a couple extra wheels to help assist, make it easier. It is self-sharpening and it was so cheap. It was so cheap. I looked it up online. This thing costs $250 normally, right? And I got it for like 40 bucks. And so I'm super excited. So that's how I'm going to be cutting my grass in here from now on, because I hate bringing in a weed whacker. I hate bringing in the lawnmower. I just don't like the fumes. I don't like the noise. I don't like the way that it feels on my hands. So I'm going to be bringing that in. So I know that the grass is long, but that's just because we've had so much rain lately. I've been looking for one of those lawnmowers forever. Okay, so I have some baby hollyhocks growing here. You'll see the sheep sorrel is going nuts, especially if you look back here all over the ground. All that green stuff is sheep sorrel, which is an herb and it's a ground cover, and I want that. So yeah, I take a bunch of it out every year and weed it, but then I let new stuff grow. The new stuff is the better stuff anyway. So here's one of my roses. I have oregano, another rose. My mullein is at its wit's end here. I'm really just saving it for seed. I've got a butterfly bush, which I know a lot of people are like, what? But I mean, bringing in the pollinators, and it's not like that's the only thing flowering. It's the only thing giving nectar. No, like I take good care of this and it's fine. It's also surrounded by areas that we mow and take care of, so I'm not worried about it. I've got sage down here, cancer weed or lyre leaf sage. This is Illinois bundleflower, or some people call it false mimosa, but this is a really good, it's a really good plant to have for, you can see by the leaves it looks like a legume, right? Or a sensitive plant, which is also a legume. And so this builds the soil. It also has beautiful flowers. It brings in pollinators, and there's a medicinal property to this, which is important. Strawberries as a ground cover. Thyme as a ground cover, but I need to cut the thyme back. Here is my, I believe it's a buckwheat, but I'm going to put the name on the screen right now so that you can see what exactly the name is. But it's really beautiful with these pink flowers. I let this just self-seed all throughout the garden because the pollinators absolutely love it. I've got scarlet sage growing everywhere, and if I get one of these to overwinter, I'm going to be happy. But I'm going to be saving a bunch of that seed and planting these again. I planted like 12 seedlings this spring, and it's really just done a wonderful thing here. You see peanuts growing, more lyre leaf sage, which is now starting to self-seed everywhere. You can see it sporadically. It's beautiful. I love having it. And it's also medicinal for guess what? Cancer, yay. Okay, so more peanuts, legumes, building the soil, filling up that annual space that will eventually be filled by perennials. Like I have a pomegranate bush right here, which will eventually get huge, but it's very small, slow growing, right? So this is a hardy pomegranate. This is its second year. No, this is its third year. I mean, it's really doing really, really well. It's hard to see because it's kind of, there it is, kind of covered up by the rest of them. Here's some more of that beautiful buckwheat. I got this the other year, maybe 3 years ago from Baker Creek Seeds. It was the cover photo, and I just fell in love with it. And like you can see, it's everywhere, and it pulls in the pollinators, and it's beautiful. There's the guineas. I love having it self-seeded in this area. I have blueberry bushes around here. There's some blueberry back here, and they're gonna get a lot bigger as well. This is my pollinator garden. There's a lot of bee balm, a lot of echinacea. There's a lot of poppies in the spring. There is rudbeckia. There is Mexican sunflower in the fall. There's forget-me-nots. There's all sorts of really good stuff that show up in here. I also have wild quinine growing in there because that's just a wonderful thing to have. All of my tomatoes are sad because they've had the rain just beating on them torrentially. So I need to come back out here and kind of stake those up again. Like I said, it's not pretty. And my chives are kind of falling over. I did trim back my rose bush over here earlier, about a week and a half ago, and I haven't picked that up yet. The sunflowers are beautiful, but they're kind of sad because the rain. This apple tree is doing really well. It's getting new foliage even. This is the first year I planted this, and it's right next to another apple tree that is just struggling. I mean, this thing has been struggling for a very long time, so I don't know what's going on with this. I'm doing my best. We'll see. We're rehabilitating. Buckwheat is in the pathway. So I planted some new cuttings of gooseberries. There's also another gooseberry over by the butterfly bush over there. So we've got squash. There's some uva ursi or bearberry. We've got calendula planted everywhere. I planted calendula everywhere. And moonwort seeds, seed pods. There's squash everywhere. There's sweet potato vines growing. Here's another blueberry. You'll see there's comfrey everywhere, and I really need to cut that back. I'm trying to make a comfrey tea, but every time I come out here to cut all this back, it just torrentially downpours, and so I haven't gotten to it yet. And the comfrey tea that I'm making is mainly for the garden to kind of rehabilitate it. There are, with all the rain, the tree of heaven. This is the main thing that I come in to weed out. Really likes to get a chance to take hold, which bothers me. There's the ground cherries from last year that's self-seeded. And here is my poke root. And yes, I know that this is technically poison. A lot of people still make jams with the berries because as long as you strain out the seeds are the things that are poison, but that just scares me, so I don't do that. These are great for if you want to make like a dye. I mean, there's a really beautiful color that comes with the berries. But the berries, some people say that if you take eat 1 or 2, maybe even 3 berries every day, it'll fight off cancer, even if you already have it. So I take the berries and I dry them just as a preventative, right? And keep it there, and just in case our family's gonna get cancer, it's just inevitable. But the root, I use the root a lot to make lymph draining salves. And so this is great for pollinators, this is great for birds, and the root, I've used that, and it saved my daughter actually. She had cat scratch fever from this guy when he was a kitten. and she had what looked like golf balls underneath her armpits and one on her neck, on her lymph nodes. Doctors said that she would not, that antibiotics wouldn't work. She could take them, but it wouldn't do anything. And even with taking them, yeah, it would take about a year for it to get better. So I made the salve out of the poke root, put it on her, and she was healed within a week. Crazy, right? So yeah, that's gonna always have a place in my garden. Plus it's beautiful. Okay, so I've got lupine under my trees. I've got comfrey under my trees. I've got things like California poppy, peanuts. I also have 4 o'clocks. I put nasturtiums. I put alliums. You can see there's some chives right there. There are some globe alliums that grow and flower in the spring, but you can kind of see them right back there. I love putting alliums under my trees. Give an antibiotic boost. This tree of heaven, it just literally pops up. Spreads by underground rhizome. It's difficult. More Illinois bundleflower. This is a black currant. Peony. I've got a couple of tomatoes kind of springing up on their own right here. And a watermelon. So that's just kind of fun. See what that does. This is my nectarine tree, and it is huge. And this is supposed to be dwarf, so and this is just the 3rd year that I had this. I had a couple of nectarines off of it this year. It was wonderful, but I'm going to cut this back a lot because this is the front tree, and it shades out everything back here if I don't cut it back a lot. So pruning this guy is a big deal for me. I have another nectarine tree right here. You can see this bumblebee kind of spread eagle on it. And so they're going to be kind of partners, these 2 nectarines. Got some blueberries. There's another peony back here doing really well behind this sunflower. And then behind here, you can't really see it very well because everything's in the way, but there's a lot of goji berry growing back there, and that's where I have one of my goji berry stands. Okay, so making our way back out. There's so much. I like to keep my food forest tidy-ish. I mean, the plants go wild and crazy. It's wonderful, but I like the paths mowed. I like to have paths where I can walk and not worry about, brushing up against plants. This is a josta berry, and that is growing quite well. I just planted that, and it was little last year. I mean, it was really tiny. It was like right here, and it's grown quite a lot this year, so I'm excited about the josta berry. This is a plum tree, and it's been struggling. This tree has always struggled, and I don't know if it's the variety or the spot or, because this one is one of the main ones. This one and this cherry right here, this is a sweet cherry, got hit really hard by deer continuously for 1 year. And so part of me feels like they're just rehabilitating. Part of me feels like this is not the right tree for this spot. We'll find out. Next year will be the last year of my, let's see how we do with the rehabilitation process for this. This is I've got spearmint back here. I've got a black lace elderberry back there. You can hardly see the leaves. It's really tiny still. I've got some native raspberries. I've got some Canby raspberries. I've got a white currant. I don't really know all the different types of raspberries that I have. I know I've got quite a lot of loganberry going along because that just likes to take over. It's climbing over onto the chicken coop roof even. And there's another gooseberry. That's a currant. This is a red currant over here. My honeyberry is struggling. I need to figure out how to help him out a little bit more. And this is all peppermint. I'm gonna come along and I'm gonna really clear out this bed of the peppermint a lot this year. In just probably tomorrow when I come through. Look at this tree of heaven. The roots emit a poison that kill everything in the vicinity around it besides itself. And so I'm not huge on like, let's get the weeds out right now, but that one I will. But you can see it's popping up everywhere. It just, that whole forest up there is basically tree of heaven, and it's frustrating. So here's one of my cherry trees. Oh, and I have a chameleon plant growing that has been struggling for a while. There's a vole that likes to keep eating that. There's some sweet potatoes. I like to use sweet potatoes as a ground cover until things start getting really filled out. This has got to be one of my favorite cherry trees. So I'm hoping it looks so much better than it did last year. So I'm thinking the rehabilitation process for this one is going really well. Although there is one pest on here I would be happy to get rid of. That is not something we want. Flick that to the chickens. Go get it. Okay. Calendula, peanuts, comfrey, sweet potatoes everywhere. Here is a mulberry, and this is a dwarf everberry mulberry. I've learned this year that no matter if it's called a dwarf or not, it's really just based on whether or not you cut it back a lot. But this is an everberry mulberry. It is not as prolific as its partner back there that I'll show you eventually, but it is in a more shaded area underneath this hickory tree. So I did do a lot of cuttings off of my mulberries. They all took. So I'm gonna have a lot more mulberries. I'm gonna put them everywhere. There are native evergreen huckleberries. There's 6 little plants along this edge, and I'm just growing them up. This is like their nursery. I'm gonna grow them up a little bit bigger and then put them as a hedge up against my house back there. I have the gold ground cover raspberry right here. Like, this is just gonna really take off. I have a lingonberry. That's a box huckleberry right there. This is my betony. This is my wonderful Adam's elderberry. There we go. So I've got an elderberry here, and I've got an elderberry there that I grew from a cutting. This is from a cutting too. That one's doing really well. And then I have a lot of honeyberries throughout here as well. So those are doing really well. One of my pride and joys is my Schisandra vine right back here, and I'm kind of keeping it away from the fence right now because I do not want the goats to eat it, or the chickens. And then I have my Sweet William, which is one of my favorite ground covers. If you look under here, through here, this ground cover right here, this is wintergreen. Oh, and I totally forgot. On the other side of this apple tree down here is one of my favorite cranberry ground covers. Cranberry is a really great ground cover, and you do not have to have a bog in order to grow it. Here it is. Here is my mango pawpaw, and it really likes shade when it's first growing. Right here, it really likes shade when it's first growing, and then as it gets taller, it'll pop out of these raspberries, and it will get more sun. Strawberries as a ground cover. This is my Nergundi tree. It's beautiful, and it's flowering for the first time this year. You can see these beautiful, beautiful flowers. This is related to the chase tree, which is also related to the crepe myrtle. They're almost interchangeable. This one is a great soil builder. It's also medicinal, just like the chase tree. Got some cosmos growing back here. There's a hickory, another hickory. I had a beautiful hickory right here. You can see it's dead. I stepped on it. I was weeding. I grabbed something. I pulled too hard and I ended up falling backwards and I stepped on it and it killed it. I'm gonna see if there's any way to like rehabilitate it. Maybe I just shocked it. I don't know. Maybe the roots are still good. Oh, it hurts my heart. It hurts my heart so much. Here's my rattlesnake master. It's just ended its flowering stage, and there's going to be a lot more ground cherries growing up here. You'll see. We've got germander. We've got fig trees. I've got a fig tree right here growing. It looks like my other fig tree is not coming up this year, but I've been fooled before by them, so I'm still holding out. This thing only came up like 3 weeks ago, so I'll do the middle bed as soon as I'm done doing the outer edges of the beds. So I'm just gonna kind of go all the way around, and then I'll hit the center area. This is one of my sweet cherry trees, and I've got some really beautiful red and pink monardas. My red monarda is right back there. This is a pink monarda. It's really beautiful. I've got oregano. I've got red root or New Jersey tea growing right here. There's also marigold everywhere. You can see the damage that the chickens did. They're like, can you see this? How they just really dug this out and threw the mulch on the ground. It's really frustrating. So I'll come in and I'll fix that. Get past the marigolds here. This is my oldest fig tree, and this year it's producing fruit, and I'm so excited to eat this fruit. Like, you have no idea. Figs are my favorite. This strawberry right here is the North Sea strawberry. That is also my favorite strawberry. I have quite a few strawberries growing up there as well. Milkweed was a big deal up there this year. And hopefully following years as well. This is the scattered remains, the skeletal version of my woad. I've got a thyme bush right here. I have some melons planted, ground cherries. There's garden huckleberry, a lot of alliums, buckwheat, cosmos, sweet potatoes, still more peanuts. And my ephedra plants are up here. So you can see this is my blue stem ephedra, and then my other ephedra is right here. This is my Mormon tea ephedra, and then this is my horse mint. And I'm excited to have that growing. Here's another, you can see the milkweed seed pod is forming. One of my pawpaw trees doing so good. This is my witch hazel tree, and this is going to be the first year that we have flowers on it. This is a winter flowering tree, which adds a lot of excitement to the garden in the winter. These are my oats. And I am letting these self-sow around the whole garden. I want oats growing everywhere. That's important to me. I've got a volunteer cherry tomato growing here. This is a beautiful, wonderful elderberry that's just grown so much. I've got some white horehound back here. There's some black horehound over there as well. More thyme as a cover. I love thyme as cover. We have gotu kola. The peaches. I almost finished harvesting all the peaches. This rain has really definitely taken its toll on it, but the best thing about having a chicken pen right next to a food forest is, and they will absolutely go nuts over this, and they will eat the whole thing. So now, waste food you know. I'm not going to eat the ones that are being eaten all by the insects on the ground. It's been sitting there in the rain for a long time, but the chickens are getting fed by it. And that's a wonderful system because I'm going to be eating their eggs later on. That just makes them healthier. So I'll get that peach too and throw it to them. The chickens really did a number in here too, because this is close to their friends, and man, it's like a feeding frenzy. They're really like raptors. They're like tiny raptors. And so it's just not as pretty as it could look in here. I have my Brahmi right here, which they didn't bother too much, which makes me really happy. This is the hose that feeds the barrel down there with the duck pond water, so I can feed my garden with some really good stuff. This is a aronia berry. I have another aronia berry back here. I also have a blue elderberry back here, which is doing really well. And I have an almond tree, which I need to get the tomatoes away from the almond tree because it's getting too shaded out. Got some rue back there, some sorrel. I have zinnias coming up everywhere, self-sown. I love the peaches. That's one of the best things about having the chicken coop right here, is really like pests, bugs, old food, rotten food, weeds, old plants that you want to get rid of. Just throw it over the fence, they'll eat it for you. It's wonderful. This is an evening primrose. I got a ton of evening primrose growing everywhere. This peach tree is my first really big fruiter that I've planted, and it just, it exceeded expectations. This thing is huge, and it's only 3 years old. It's really happy. Notice how it's close to the chickens. Notice how the duck pond, when it overflows, it gets into this area. I also take a bucket and I just splash water down this area too. So, this thing's happy. I gotta come in and cut back some of the zinnias. This is a plum tree. This is a Bruce plum. The other one back there was a Santa Rosa. This is a pear tree right here. And this is another wildflower bed that I just planted a bunch of flowers in hopes of bringing in pollinators. And then this whole bed along the edge here goes all the way up and all the way down is all flowers. Zinnias, you can see zinnias coming up. In the spring, it's really bachelor buttons, monarda, poppies, everything you could think of. The corn is growing here, and in between the corn we've got some melons. We've got squash. This is where we saw the copperhead, so it's quite destroyed. Plus then the chickens came and dug holes everywhere. I gotta cut back this rue. I have another blue elderberry growing right here. You can see the leaves right here. And that's gonna be the twin to the one up there in the corner. And my other almond tree. This is my other almond tree, and she's doing pretty good, so I'm happy for her. She's doing great. Okay, coming on down. So this was corn and squash and garlic and all sorts of really good stuff. You'll see I have buckets everywhere with vole traps underneath. I've had a real big problem, especially in this area, with voles, which is why I now have a snake problem in this area. And like you can see, there's a lot of grass coming up. I just really need to just redo this bed in here because I did not do any kind of ground cover before I put soil on, so the grass just kind of comes up as it will. These 3 hibiscus plants right here, the Rose of Sharon's, I'm going to transplant those probably today over towards my house. I have a purple one, a pink one, and a white one. Here's a cherry tree. My mother-in-law planted this one, and it is just wonderful. It produces every year. And the corn, I gotta get this up because we really did a number on this bed coming through trying to get the snake. Although I would rather sacrifice a few ears of corn and not have to worry about having a copperhead in my garden. Here's another cherry tree that I just planted this year. We got a lot of new fruit trees this year because we felt like it was really important to use our money on something that would give back to our family for generations. This is a Harco nectarine. This is the twin mulberry for the everbearing mulberry to the other side. And this thing has mulberries on it already. So this is its third year of being planted, and it already has had mulberries on it. This is a mature gooseberry. We got a lot of wonderful red gooseberries off of this list this year. And this is another gooseberry that we got some great gooseberries off this year. Another red one. There is a fig tree behind the corn right here, and he's doing really good. He's super happy. And I got a lot of sweet William and love and a mist flowers growing in this area as well. So there's a couple sweet Williams left. But what I really need to do is let these dry out, get the seeds, cut all this back, and I'm gonna do another planting of zinnias. The kiwi has just it was funny, before all this was falling down, they were going straight up and it looked like it had a mohawk. It was pretty funny. Let's see, and again, I've got thyme and oregano and sage everywhere. Sage is something you want to have everywhere. I'm gonna transplant this hydrangea today as well. This hydrangea was a gift to me the day that my father passed. A very good friend of mine came up here to support me, Miss Chaffin, and she gave me a pot that had a hydrangea in it, and I planted it, and it grows and it comes back every year. And so this is a really big deal, a very special plant to me. So I'm going to move this over to where my house is so I can see it better, and it has more room to really expand and grow, because it just does not do as well as it could right here. Like every year, I mean, it's been 2 years and it's really only that big, so it needs a better spot. Okay, so the last thing that I did not say, under here I have this vine. It's called a cinnamon vine, and it's growing with my kiwis. It's a perennial. They also call it the air potato, and it grows potato-like vegetables. Taste amazing. Tastes just like potato, as much as you can without actually being a potato. But it's a vine, and you don't have to worry about those potato tubers or whatever they are. Those potatoes, the fruit of them actually being in the ground and then being eaten or anything like that. So this is really great because it keeps the potato-like things off the ground, and you can just kind of harvest them as they come along. Okay, so that's the whole outside. Oh, it's a mess. Isn't it a mess? I mean, look at that. It's just laying down. I hope you come back and you see the after too, because it's going to be quite dramatically different. Okay, so when you first come in, I've got blueberries everywhere. So I've got blueberries here. I've got garlic chives. I've got globe alliums, comfrey. This is an apple tree. It did not do as well this year either. I am really learning how to take care of apple trees the right way, and I think I've got some great ideas on how to help it next year. The strawberries are doing a really good job being a ground cover here. I've got some 4 o'clocks, some squash, some calendula, sunflowers. Here's that lyre leaf sage again, thyme, more strawberry. I mean, this is just oozing strawberries in the spring. It's wonderful. These are June bearing strawberry. All the other strawberries that I have here are ever bearing. This is my dad's memorial garden. I planted this when I learned that he got sick, as a way to kind of cope with his tumor. So over here, I have sage, because I felt like he was a very wise man. I have rosemary as a way, as representing bringing back memory and remembrance. lavender for peace. And there's some more lavender over here. Some more rosemary. There's a pomegranate right here, but that's just because I put a pomegranate there. And then behind here, which is in like a terrible spot, I really did a bad job of picking out where I wanted to put that. And I need to move that lavender back there and move it more towards the front. For some reason, I had these heights mixed up in my head that this was going to be smaller than the lily. And so the lily is it's the middle name of one of my daughters. And so I have my twin girls, their middle names is Lily and Rose. And so I have a rose bush on this side. The lemongrass is something that he just absolutely loved, having grasses in any kind of landscaping. He loved to just sit and watch them. And so I have the lemongrass here. I have some parsley and some dill. That's not doing so great right now, but the parsley, dill, and then there's some fennel back here. I have all that growing because it pulls in the swallowtail butterflies. This is the tiger swallowtail. This is just a decoration, but that is just a really important symbolic animal, I guess, that kind of represents him in our family. And then there's stevia. And so this is my stevia, and that's just because he was really sweet. So, and then there's just some zinnias that self-seeded, some calendula that self-seeded, and some comfrey that self-seeded here as well. I've got some garlic chives, tarragon. There's more squash all around here. Inside here, I have Roman chamomile, and you can see, like, I really need to cut this back. It's regrowing in the center. This is my ground cover in here, and I just love it because when you step on it, it smells like apples. And I let it go to seed so that it would spread, and you can see a whole bunch. No, so I'm not trying to pet you, but I don't mind petting you. I don't mind. I've got a whole bunch of little baby underneath the branches, you can't see them, of baby Roman chamomile growing because I let it go to seed. Over here I have grapes, which honestly I have never pruned, and this spring, early spring, winter, I'm going to start pruning these grapes and taking really good care of them. They are 3 years old. I should have done that earlier, but I was very new to all of this, and I had just kind of stuck plants in anywhere that I thought was appropriate without researching a whole lot. I figured, I'd research after I got them in the ground, and these guys took off without me getting around to researching them yet. So I have them, they're producing. I actually harvested a bunch of grapes off of these guys already this year. You can see the clusters, they're kind of drying up now. We come out, we harvest some when we're just walking around too. And there's several varieties, green, purple, blue, and I'll just take care of these. Like I said, this is definitely a video of the worst look that my food forest could have. This is my Codenopsis, and it goes all the way up to the top of the trellis, and it's got to be one of my most beautiful treasured plants. Look at those grapes, don't they look great? We have asparagus here. Finally found out that this is an aronia berry. I need to pick those. I have a whole jar full that I've already dried from here. I have American arnica growing and starting to spread as a ground cover back there. I have some seedlings of some more rows of Sharons growing here so that I can eventually plant them out of here once they get stronger. I have some more rosemary. I have, let's see, there was something else. Oh, there's hollyhocks in the corners of all these as well. And all these zinnias kind of self-seeded themselves. I'm really a big fan of letting things self-seed in the garden here, especially the food forest. Let them grow where they want to grow. This is a orange balm. There is liatris growing. You can see the spike right here. Sunflowers. My daughter's stuck aronia berries on the mosquito noses and some of their feet. Here's one of my fennel. I'm waiting to see if we get any swallowtail caterpillars on the fennel or the dill. This is my Rosa rugosa, and you can see I need to deadhead some of these. The rain has really just kind of hit these flowers hard, but I just think that that is absolutely gloriously beautiful. But I got this Rosa rugosa after a long search. I finally found one the weekend that I found out that my dad was sick when I first went to go visit him. And so plants are therapy for me, and this rose was part of my therapy of coping with everything. So come home and plant things. This fig is doing really, really well. I'm very excited about this fig. This is a Florea fig, and I'm hoping that this does really well next year as well and gives me some fruit. More squash everywhere. The marigolds, they were so tall and the rain was so heavy. I mean, it was torrential. My husband was driving to work the other day, and he said it was like hurricane weather. He's never seen it like that before. He was driving, he ended up hitting a tree because it was raining so hard he couldn't see the road. He thought he was on the road, but he wasn't. He was in the ditch, and so he ended up hitting a tree. He got off out of the ditch onto the road, finally found it, and 2 more trees had actually fallen onto the road, and so he ended up hitting 2 more trees on the way there. Luckily, he was in like our old beat up like tank of a truck that day, and so like it was rough for him. So you can imagine that type of downpour. He said like just walking out on flat ground, there's like 3 inches of water just piled up or puddled up, or it was bad. So all these plants just had that amount of pressure downpouring on them all night just a couple nights ago, and then we had a huge rain last night as well. I mean, it's been torrential. I'm actually very excited to be able to get a chance to be out here even so that I can see what's going on and kind of take stock of what happened during these storms, which I'm sure are not quite over yet. So here is, oh my goodness, I had someone tell me what they thought that this plant was, because I planted it and I was very excited. It's a medicinal. I forgot what it was though. I'm thinking it's some kind of daisy. I forgot what it was. Somebody said it though, and I was like, yes, that's the one, because I know that I planted one of those, but I forget what it is. Sorry. There's multiple hundreds of different varieties of plants in this garden right now. Here's some more goji berries. The flowers on the goji berries aren't doing so well with all the rain, but that's why you plant variety, right? So that if one isn't doing well because of some reason or another, there is another one that is doing well because that's the weather they prefer, where the other one does not. This is a Seckel pear, and I'm very happy with this. This is a chrysanthemum, a medicinal one, and this is known as Juhua, and it's huge. Let's see, can you see how big this is? Look at that's got like a 5-foot spread right there, and it's 4 feet tall. This is going to be loaded with flowers very soon. I have my vanilla sweetgrass. I have some more chameleon plant right here that the voles do not get to quite as much. I have another ground carpet raspberry, nasturtiums, more of the buckwheat, the alliums, geraniums were coming around. This is where all my blackberry or raspberries and loganberries and all those types of things are that I showed you earlier. This peach tree had white scale earlier this year, and it is just looking so much better. I did treat it with neem, and I just loaded it up with a lot of duck pond water, a lot of comfrey. You can see there's a lot of debris of old comfrey stems being laid down on top of this. I put a lot of alliums in here. So I'm excited that this is actually doing a lot better as a peach tree. And the disease definitely didn't spread to the other ones, which is nice. These are clumping strawberries. I don't have to worry about them spreading, although I say worry, but I really love it when strawberries spread. I want them to spread because they're ground cover. Okay. Let's see what's going on over here. Okay, so here we're coming around. More buckwheat, more goji berry. This is my persimmon. What type of persimmon is this? This is a proc, which is an American persimmon, and that's doing really well. And we're getting into the asparagus beds now. So, okay, so the asparagus is seeding, and some people don't like to buy the asparagus that has these seeds. You can see the red seeds on them. I love it because then I don't have to buy as many asparagus starts or roots or seeds because they just kind of self-seed themselves. And you can see here's a baby asparagus that's self-seeded. And I have those literally all over the garden. Here is garden huckleberry. You can see these. You don't want to eat the berries when they're green because they're potentially toxic then, but they are, and they're not very sweet. But you can put them in jams and all sorts of stuff, add some sugar, some stevia or something like that. But this is an annual, and it comes up and it produces tons of berries the first year that you plant it, which usually you can't get berries the first year you plant any plant. Berries is something you usually have to wait a year or two for. Here's a bigger version of my evergreen huckleberry, nasturtiums, 4 o'clocks. Those are all really great things to have under a fruit tree. This is another apple. And like I said, I'm learning how to take care of apples stuff. Some more melons are growing, more nasturtiums. I planted good King Henry right there. That's a really good perennial green. See how the radish is self-sowing? I'm gonna take this off tomorrow, and I'm gonna kind of just spread the seeds everywhere because I want radish coming up on its own everywhere. More blueberries. I have like 20 blueberry plants growing everywhere. And see how the asparagus kind of it gets everywhere. I really don't like having stuff in the path. It bothers me a lot. So I'm going to have that taken away. Those beautiful sunflowers. I'm not taken away, but I'm going to have those kind of pulled back. I'll tie them up. Mullein. I love having mullein in the garden. When you harvest mullein, you either harvest the flowers like this, or when it's very young in its first year, you harvest the very small center leaves before they get very big. And look at these June berries are getting ready to sprout some more or have a second. I don't even know how that happened, but that's exciting. Another blueberry. There's another blueberry. You can really see the Codenopsis from this side. I have, well, I'll show you a different specimen. It's better. There is a blueberry in here, which is difficult to find because the strawberries are kind of covering it up right now, but that's a very new one that I planted as a cutting. Hollyhocks. Next year, there's going to be hollyhocks coming up everywhere. The ground cherries, this is a big area for the ground cherries. Calendula is coming up again. I just took out a ton of yarrow. This was basically just all yarrow 3 weeks ago. And I took out most of it because it spread so quickly. This little bunch right here and right here is gonna take over this entire bed again if I let it very rapidly. Get this off the lavender. And more hollyhocks. I love hollyhocks. So I planted hollyhock seeds everywhere, especially along the edge there and throughout the beds, up against places where I can tie them back if I need to, because they can get top heavy. This is that apple. I think we finished. I think that's the whole thing. Oh, I wanted to show you right here is salad burnet. Now, it's kind of like everything. It's just not looking good right now. If I cut that back, it'll restart itself from the center. That is a perennial salad green. And so I'm excited to, just have greens available all the time. Lettuces. I think that's really important. Okay, so that is the food forest in its most sad state. Did I tell you guys that this is a plum? This is my Santa Rosa plum. This is the one that goes with the Bruce plum right over there. So this one had some plums on it this year, but they fell off very prematurely. So next year, I'm looking forward to having plums on this one. Okay, I think that's it, guys. This is the food forest in its most awful state. And you know what? Like, it's still really beautiful, I think. Yes, there's a lot of deadheading that I need to do. There's a lot of maintenance. There's a lot of grass cutting that I need to do. There's some weeding. There's some cutting back of thyme and oregano and things like that. Like, I could really cut back on that yarrow on top, but really, it's still feeling like an oasis in here. Let me just put up those tomatoes, tie them up again since they've fallen down from the rain. Maybe gather some of these sunflowers that have fallen over and hang them up to dry so that I can harvest some of the seeds, especially this one. I really love this sunflower specifically. I think this was a really beautiful one this year. And you can see the seeds. You don't have to wait for the flowers to fall. You can actually make them fall yourself. And the seeds are right there. Isn't that beautiful? I'm going to bring that in and let that dry off and then harvest the seeds. But there's just a lot going on in here. And I know it looks messy. And I really like to have a tidy garden. And so part of me is driven a little bit nuts by this. But the other part of me is just like, this is beautiful still. Even in its chaos, even in its saddened state by the rain and right before the rain, we had the worst drought that we've had in almost like 100 years. And so they had that stress, and then they had the stress of the torrential rains, and yet it still is looking beautiful. I've got zinnias self-sowing, popping up everywhere, adding color. I've got these beautiful sunflowers. I've got the backdrop of that gorgeous mountain. The scarlet sage right over here, the buckwheat. It's magical still. It's absolutely magical. So here I am on my bench, my favorite place to be on the whole property, because maybe it's because it's a garden. Maybe it's because this is my refuge. This is where I went to and where I still go to when I feel sad, forlorn, angry, stressed out, any of those things. When I feel just on edge, I come here and I find peace. But I also think that because when I'm out here, there's so much prayer that goes on, that there's a blessing and a peace that comes with a place of prayer as well. And so there's that going on here as well. And I love it. There's usually butterflies everywhere, bees humming, buzzing around. There's hummingbirds. We have a whole bunch of, what are those yellow birds called? You know, I could have said it like 2 seconds ago until I decided that I wanted to say it. Oh, for goodness sakes. Goldfinches? I think they're goldfinches. They've taken up residence around here, and it's magical. So even though this is the worst it's ever going to look probably, throughout the summer. Obviously the winter is going to look, dead and barren in here, but except for that witch hazel tree. But during the summer, this is the worst that it's ever going to look, the way that it looks right now. And it is still a place of peace, and it's still a place of abundance. And I see grass growing up through the mulch, and it's driving me nuts a little bit. I just want to pull the weeds so much. There's a lot of therapy in pulling weeds too. It's highly addictive, I find. But anyway, so this is my food forest. And guys, if you have a food forest and you decide to have a food forest, or you're wanting to have a food forest, sometimes your food forest is going to look like this. It's going to be messy. You're going to see weeds popping up everywhere. You're going to see, things falling over. You're going to see deadheading that needs to be done. And it's not going to be perfect like a lot of these that you see on YouTube are, because, I've done this. I have never shown my food forest like this before, and I wouldn't want to show my food forest like this until I realized that maybe it's important to show it like this, so that the good and the bad, the up and the down, but even as it is now, it's the biggest blessing in my life other than my family and my God. So I am a huge proponent for this. If you guys are thinking about having a food forest, it is so easy. You literally cannot mess it up. Plant some trees, plant some shrubs, have it with food in mind, and it'll teach you what it needs. If you just keep adding, even if it's just cuttings of your old plants and you keep adding to it, it'll become more and more an abundance of a blessing. And this is a very different food forest than it's going to look like in 2 or 3 years. And in 3 to 4 years, this garden is going to be completely different. That persimmon tree behind me is going to be huge. Instead of a foot tall, the aronia bushes are going to be huge. The blueberries are going to be so much bigger. The gooseberries, the currants, the huckleberries, everything's going to get a lot bigger. There's going to be a homeostasis that is reached when the perennials become the size, their mature size, and then everything is allowed to self-seed in between them where it wants to be, and it's going to become very, very balanced. And so I'm very excited about that, and it's just getting better, and I could not enjoy the journey to a mature food forest more if I tried. I mean, it's really almost as much fun getting it there as it will be having it, I'm pretty sure. I haven't been there yet, so I don't know, but I'm just saying it's that much fun. So if you can, do it. Start small, start big. I mean, just go for it. Do it. Even if you only have a patio, go for it. Get them into some pots. Do whatever you can. It's great stuff. In the meantime, if you can't do anything yet, just get some pots, put some blueberries in it, and put some currants in, and get those started so that you can transplant them when it's time for you to be able to have your food forest or whatever. Do something, research, whatever. I can't more highly suggest having this kind of lifestyle, because this is literally what it looks like after not being in here for a month, maybe a month and a half, and not doing anything, and having torrential downpours and droughts and all that. Literally, guys, the amount of input into this garden drops dramatically every single year. I put in, maybe a week's worth of time in the summer total to maintaining this, and the food production just increases. So small input, large output, and lots of beauty and enjoyment in the meantime. So even when it looks like this. So please don't be too hard on me. I know it needs some work right now, but I'm going to enjoy that so much tomorrow, just puttering in here. I hope you guys have an absolutely wonderful day. Please hit that like button, the notification bell, the subscribe button, all those wonderful things. I would appreciate it a lot. It helps support me and the channel. The guineas say, do it, please. And you guys, stay blessed.